For years, one absence echoed louder than any royal speech. Behind palace walls and across oceans, a quiet distance grew between a reigning monarch and a young prince born into history. What happens when bloodlines meet estrangement? When legacy collides with modern rebellion? Tonight, we unravel the emotional undercurrent beneath the monarchy, the silence between King Charles and Archie, that may shape the future of the crown. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The British monarchy has always projected permanence. Processions move forward, crowns are placed, oaths are sworn. From the outside, it feels immovable, carved from centuries of ritual and restraint. But behind that polished surface lies something far more fragile: family. And family, unlike institutions, can fracture quietly. As Charles ascended to the throne, he inherited more than power. He inherited unresolved emotion. A grandson growing up, far from palace corridors. A name tied to the crown, yet raised beyond its daily rhythm. The symbolism was impossible to ignore. Every public appearance, every balcony moment, every carefully choreographed wave carried a subtle question: who is missing? Archie represents more than lineage. He embodies a generational shift that the monarchy cannot fully control. In him lives both tradition and independence, duty and distance. He is royal by birth, yet shaped by a world that questions hierarchy and inherited power. And Charles, a king who waited decades for his moment, must now reconcile the demands of sovereignty with the quiet ache of personal absence. It is the ultimate paradox. A monarch with global visibility navigating a deeply private void. Cameras capture the crown's continuity, but they cannot record the pauses between ceremonial applause, those moments when history feels heavy and legacy feels uncertain. The emotional weight intensifies because monarchy is not merely political. It is symbolic. The crown thrives on unity, on imagery that reassures a nation of stability. Yet unity becomes complicated when family branches diverge. The generational divide is not simply about geography. It is about philosophy. One generation raised in deference to tradition, another raised in assertion of identity. And between them stands a child too young to understand the storm his existence stirs, yet central to its narrative. The world watches closely, analyzing gestures, reading between lines, speculating on future reunions as though reconciliation itself were a constitutional matter. Charles carries the dual burden of king and grandfather. His speeches speak of continuity and service. But beneath that language lies something more human: reflection, regret, perhaps even longing. The crown demands composure, yet legacy demands connection. Can a monarch afford vulnerability? Can a grandfather afford distance? These questions do not fade with ceremony. They intensify with time, because absence, when left unaddressed, transforms into narrative, and narrative shapes perception. Around the globe, observers wait for a sign and image, a meeting, a subtle acknowledgement that bloodlines transcend headlines. But silence persists. And silence, in royal history, has often been more powerful than confrontation. It builds tension slowly, invisibly, until one moment forces everything into the open. The silence between Charles and Archie is not loud, yet it reverberates through conversations about the monarchy's future. Because if legacy is about succession, it is also about relationship. And when relationship falters, the foundation trembles ever so slightly. But to understand the silence, we must first return to where the fracture began. When a royal couple stepped away from the institution, headlines exploded, but inside the palace, the shockwaves ran deeper than the public ever saw. This wasn't just a constitutional shift, it was personal. A father, a son, a grandson born into uncertainty, and suddenly, a future rewritten. The departure didn't just change geography, it changed emotional proximity forever. What looked to the world like a bold declaration of independence felt, within royal walls, like a fracture in slow motion. Stepping back from royal duties was more than a procedural adjustment. It was a symbolic severing from centuries of expectation. The monarchy is built on continuity, on the quiet understanding that each generation accepts its role without hesitation. But this was hesitation made public. It challenged the rhythm of tradition and exposed a truth the institution rarely acknowledges, that loyalty to the crown can collide with loyalty to self. For Charles, the moment carried a dual sting. As monarch in waiting, he understood the pressures of duty better than anyone. As a father, he felt the emotional undercurrent that no official statement could soften. The departure was not simply about roles and titles. It was about identity, about belonging, about whether the institution he had devoted his life to could coexist with his son's evolving vision of autonomy. And beneath all of that lingered the unspoken question: where does a grandson fit when his parents choose distance? Distance has a way of reshaping perception. Phone calls become statements. Silence becomes interpretation. Silence becomes interpretation. Private disagreements morph into global speculation. The media fed the narrative relentlessly, dissecting tone, posture, and timing as though decoding state secrets. Every interview, every comment, perceived slight widened the gap. What may have begun as a negotiation over boundaries slowly transformed into a battle over narrative control. And narrative in the modern age is power. Meanwhile, Archie's world unfolded far from palace corridors. He would grow up hearing stories of heritage rather than living within it. No daily reminders of ceremonial expectation. No immediate immersion in royal protocol. Instead, a childhood shaped by independence, by a life consciously constructed outside the gravitational pull of monarchy. For some, that distance represented liberation. For others, it symbolized loss. The crown thrives on visibility, on generational continuity, displayed with pride. Yet here was a royal descendant growing up largely beyond its reach. Inside the institution, adaptation became both necessity and threat. The monarchy has survived precisely because it bends without appearing to break, but bending too far risks altering its core. Could it embrace a future where lineage does not guarantee? Could it modernize without surrendering authority? These were not abstract debates. They were deeply personal calculations. Charles stood at the center of that tension, torn between protecting the integrity of the crown and preserving a relationship that headlines could not repair. The departure marked more than a relocation. It marked the beginning of a new era of royal complexity. Tradition versus transformation. Duty versus self-determination. Unity versus independence. And in the quiet spaces between official engagements and diplomatic speeches, one truth settled heavily. Reconciliation would not arrive automatically. It would require humility, patience, and perhaps a redefinition of what monarchy means in a world no longer bound by unquestioned allegiance. Yet distance does something powerful. It turns unanswered questions into emotional weight. Behind the crown lies a man who waited decades to become king. But amid ceremonies and constitutional duties, there may have been quieter thoughts about legacy, not just as sovereign, but as grandfather. In moments away from cameras, what does Charles feel when he considers Archie a child tied to history yet raised far from it? For most of his life, Charles lived in preparation. Preparation to serve. Preparation to lead. Preparation to embody continuity. From childhood briefings to decades of public apprenticeship, he was shaped by the inevitability of kingship. Every speech refined, every gesture studied, every opinion weighed against tradition. He learned early that emotion must be disciplined, that vulnerability could never overshadow duty. The crown required steadiness, not sentiment. And yet, beneath the discipline of a future monarch, there was always the heart of a father, and now, the heart of a grandfather. Power is often mistaken for immunity. It is not. The paradox of kingship is that the higher the throne, the deeper the isolation. Charles understands this intimately. He has lived within expectation for longer than many reign. But what cannot be trained into a monarch is the quiet ache of distance from family. Titles can command armies and shape governments, but they cannot summon proximity. They cannot rewrite emotional geography. As king, he stands at the center of national attention. As grandfather, he may feel the absence most acutely. Grandparenthood shifts perspective. It softens edges that once seemed immovable. It reframes legacy beyond succession plans and constitutional frameworks. For Charles, Archie represents not only the continuation of bloodline, but the possibility of renewal, a chance for healing across generational divides, and yet that possibility remains suspended in space, present in name, distant in daily life. The ache is subtle but persistent. It lingers in milestones missed, in conversations shortened by circumstance, in the awareness that time, once taken for granted, now moves with sharper urgency. Publicly, composure never wavers. The monarchy depends on it. Restraint is not merely habit, it is survival. Every expression is filtered through centuries of expectation. There is no room for visible longing, no platform for personal lament. But private emotion does not vanish simply because it is unseen. It settles quietly, shaping decisions in ways the public may never recognize. The tension between duty and desire becomes an internal negotiation, a silent balancing act between protecting the institution and preserving what remains a familial connection. The generational bridge between Charles and Archie remains unbuilt, not out of indifference but out of complexity. One generation molded by obligation, another growing amid autonomy. Between them lies misunderstanding, amplified by media, stretched by miles, and deepened by differing philosophies of life within and beyond monarchy. Charles knows that legacy is not guaranteed by ceremony alone. It requires relationship. It requires trust. It requires moments of shared humanity that transcend formal titles. And so the king reflects not only on what he has inherited, but on what he may yet repair. Because legacy is not static, it evolves with choice. And the choices made now will echo far beyond headlines, shaping how history remembers this era of quiet separation. The crown may symbolize permanence, but connection demands intention. But legacy isn't just inherited, it's shaped by those who choose whether to accept it. Archie represents something unprecedented. Royal blood raised beyond palace gates. What does it mean to grow up aware of heritage, yet distant from the institution that defines it? In many ways, Archie's existence challenges centuries of royal tradition not through rebellion, but through geography and upbringing. For generations, royal identity was forged within stone walls and strict protocol. From infancy, heirs were immersed in ritual, surrounded by symbols that quietly reinforced who they were expected to become. But Archie's formative years unfold differently. His understanding of monarchy is not shaped by daily ceremony, but by stories, by fragments of history carried across oceans. He is connected to a lineage that commands global recognition, yet he navigates a life structured around privacy and independence. That contrast is not merely logistical, it is transformative. There is power in growing up outside expectation, but there is also complexity. Archie embodies a dual identity that cannot be simplified. To the world, he is a prince by birth, a continuation of a historic dynasty. To himself, he is a child shaped by his immediate surroundings, influenced by values that prioritize autonomy over obligation. The tension between those realities may not be visible now, but it lingers beneath the surface, waiting for time to reveal its full weight. Because identity, especially royal identity, does not remain dormant forever. Freedom offers opportunity. It allows a childhood less burdened by scrutiny, less confined by ritual. Yet expectation does not disappear simply because it is deferred. The world remembers titles even when daily life does not revolve around them. And as Archie grows older, the contrast between who he is privately and what he represents publicly may sharpen. That is the quiet dilemma of inheritance. You do not choose the bloodline you are born into, but you do eventually choose how to respond to it. Children are perceptive. They absorb tension even when it is unspoken. Conversations held carefully, headlines glimpsed in passing. The subtle awareness of being used on a global stage, these elements shape understanding long before maturity fully forms. Archie's experience will be defined not just by love and protection, but by the invisible narratives that swirl around his name. And within those narratives lies the enduring question of belonging. Where does he feel most at home? With heritage that stretches back centuries, or with the modern identity being crafted beyond it? Belonging is not dictated by geography alone. It is cultivated through connection. through shared experiences, through bridges built intentionally rather than assumed. And here lies the possibility that shifts this entire narrative. Youth carries flexibility. It offers a chance to redefine relationships without the hardened edges of past conflict. Archie's very existence presents an opportunity not for spectacle, but for healing, for a monarchy learning to adapt, for a family learning to reconnect, for tradition and independence to find common ground rather than opposition. The symbolism is profound. A child standing at the intersection of two worlds, neither rejecting nor fully embracing either one yet. In that space lies potential. Potential for transformation. Potential for unity that does not erase difference, but acknowledges it. The monarchy has always evolved, even when it claims permanence. And perhaps its next evolution depends not on grand declarations, but on quiet, deliberate choices made across generations. And so the emotional crossroads emerges, not confrontation, but choice. Imagine the moment, a reigning king meeting the next generation of his own bloodline, not in conflict, but in quiet awareness of time passing. History moves forward whether families are ready or not. In that space between protocol and humanity lies the most powerful question of all. Can love outlast institutional tension? The image alone carries enormous symbolic force. A grandfather and grandson linked not only by affection, but by centuries of inherited responsibility. One shaped by ritual, the other by relative freedom. One carrying the full gravity of a crown, the other untouched by its daily demands. That contrast is not just emotional, it is historic. Because when monarchy intersects with family, the stakes become more than personal. They become emblematic of continuity itself. The monarchy exists as both system and bloodline. It governs through structure, but it survives through relationship. Without connection between generations, the institution risks appearing mechanical, distant, untouchable. Yet when that connection is strained, every interaction becomes charged with meaning. A simple meeting can be interpreted as strategy. A private conversation can be framed as negotiations. The world watches not just for affection, but for signs of alignment. Is this reconciliation genuine, or is it calculated? That tension hovers over every potential encounter. Emotional reconciliation, if it comes, would carry consequences far beyond family healing. It would reshape perception. It would signal that tradition and independence can coexist rather than collide. But reconciliation is not uncomplicated. There are political dimensions to consider, public narratives to navigate, pride to confront. The crown cannot afford instability, and yet family cannot survive on optics alone. That is the fragile balance. Charles must weigh how to open his heart without opening the institution to renewed scrutiny. Public optics often demand grand gestures, but genuine connection rarely thrives under spectacle. The most transformative exchanges happen quietly without announcement or applause, and that is where the real tension lies. Can something authentic emerge in a space so heavily observed? Can vulnerability exist within an institution trained to conceal it? These questions linger because history has shown how easily relationships within monarchy can fracture when placed beneath relentless attention. Relationships under scrutiny are delicate, every word dissected, every silence amplified. Missteps become headlines, intentions become speculation. It is a pressure few families endure, let alone families bound by constitutional duty. And yet beneath the pressure, the human need for belonging remains constant. Charles may wear a crown, but he also carries the universal desire to be understood, to repair what feels incomplete. Archie may grow up outside palace routines, but he still carries inherited ties that cannot be erased by distance. There is transformative power in personal moments, precisely because they bypass political calculus. A shared laugh, a quiet acknowledgement, a mutual recognition that beyond titles and tension, there is blood and memory and possibility. Such moments, if they occur, would not rewrite history overnight, but they could soften its edges. They could create a foundation for something stronger than image management, something rooted in sincerity. Yet even sincerity must navigate legacy. The monarchy does not exist in isolation from its past. Every reconciliation would be measured against previous fractures, every gesture compared to old wounds. And so as we imagine this pivotal meeting, whether symbolic or real, we must remember that it unfolds beneath the long shadow of history. But even the most emotional moments are shaped by history's shadow. Queen Elizabeth II embodied continuity. For decades, she balanced family fractures with unwavering public composure. Now, with her era concluded, the emotional responsibility shifts to Charles. How does a king navigate healing while preserving stability? And what lessons from the late Queen linger over this generational divide? Elizabeth, you understood something fundamental about monarchy. Emotion must never eclipse duty. Through wars of words, personal scandals, and shifting public sentiment, she remained steady, not cold, not detached, but disciplined. Her philosophy was simple and unyielding. The crown endures when it rises above drama. Personal pain was absorbed quietly, never weaponized, never allowed to destabilize the institution she had sworn to protect. That restraint became her signature. It also became her shield. But restraint has consequences. It preserves order, yet it can leave wounds unspoken. Charles grew up watching that balance unfold. He witnessed how his mother separated public responsibility from private turmoil, how she endured turbulence without allowing it to fracture the monarchy's image. And now, standing in her place, he faces a different world. A louder one, a faster one, a world where silence is interpreted as indifference and vulnerability is scrutinized in real time. The generational difference is undeniable. Elizabeth ruled through quiet constancy. Charles must navigate an era that demands visible response. The emotional legacy passed from monarch to monarch is not written in law. It is absorbed through years of proximity, through example, through sacrifice. Elizabeth's reign was defined by stability above all else. Even when the family faltered, the institution remained composed. That lesson now weighs heavily. Can Charles honor that philosophy while also addressing fractures more directly? Can he blend his mother's unwavering steadiness with his own instinct toward dialogue and reform? Stability and evolution are not natural allies. They exist in tension. Too much change risks unsettling tradition. Too little risks irrelevance. Elizabeth mastered the art of subtle adaptation, modernizing without appearing to yield. Charles inherits not just her throne, but her dilemma. 2. A monarchy must remain recognizable, yet responsive. Firm, yet humane. The divide between generations, between royal duty and personal independence tests that balance more than any ceremony ever could. There is opportunity hidden within this transition. The conclusion of one era allows the emergence of another. Charles is not bound to replicate his mother's every method. He carries her influence, but he also carries his own convictions. Environmental advocacy, interfaith dialogue, a willingness to speak openly on issues once considered untouchable, these qualities signal a monarch prepared to redefine leadership without dismantling its foundation. The question is whether such evolution can coexist with reconciliation inside the family itself. Elizabeth's shadow does not constrain. It instructs. It reminds the monarchy that survival depends not on flawless unity, but on resilience, on the capacity to endure criticism, adapt to cultural shifts, and preserve connection even amid strain. Charles must now interpret that lesson in the context of his own relationships, particularly with a grandson growing up beyond the palace's immediate orbit. The next chapter will not mirror the last. It cannot, and perhaps that is the point. Because ultimately, the monarchy survives not through perfection, but through adaptation. The story isn't about confrontation. It's about possibility. The future of the crown may depend less on protocol and more on reconciliation. As Archie grows older, questions of identity and heritage will surface naturally. When that time comes, the emotional groundwork laid today may determine whether legacy divides or unites. Time changes everything. It softens outrage. It reframes narrative. It forces reflection. And as years pass, identity begins to crystallize in ways that no institution can fully predict. Archie will not remain a symbol forever. He will not remain a symbol forever. He will not become a young man asking his own questions. Where do I belong? What does my name carry? What does it demand? Those questions cannot be postponed indefinitely. They will rise quietly at first, then with clarity. And when they do, the answers available to him will depend on the bridges built now, not later. Public expectation evolves alongside personal growth. The world that once reacted with shock to royal departures is already shifting toward curiosity about the future. Conversations once framed around division are gradually becoming discussions about direction. What does modern monarchy look like? How can it remain relevant without becoming rigid? These questions are no longer whispered. They are debated openly, and within those debates lies an unspoken understanding that generational healing would strengthen, not weaken, the crown. Healing does not require dramatic gestures. It requires intention, a phone call returned, a door left open, a willingness to listen rather than defend. These acts may never make headlines, yet they carry transformative weight, because reconciliation is not achieved through spectacle. It is cultivated through persistence, through humility, through recognizing that pride, when left unchecked, can harden into distance that no ceremony can repair. Redefining what royal means may be the quiet revolution of this era. Once, it meant unwavering adherence to tradition. Now it may also mean adaptability, emotional intelligence, the courage to acknowledge fracture, and choose repair over resentment. If Charles can embody that shift not by abandoning tradition, but by expanding its meaning, the monarchy may emerge more resilient than before, not diminished, but renewed. The power of private gestures should never be underestimated. A shared moment free from cameras, a conversation untethered from expectation. These moments do not erase history, but they can redirect its trajectory. For Archie, knowing that connection remains possible could shape how he perceives his inheritance. For Charles, embracing reconciliation could redefine his reign in ways no constitutional reform ever could. The long-term implications extend beyond one family. They touch the very narrative of monarchy in the 21st century. Because institutions are sustained by stories, and the story unfolding now is not solely about separation. It is about choice. Choice to cling to old wounds, or to move forward. Choice to interpret independence as rejection, or as evolution. Choice to allow time to widen the gap, or to narrow it deliberately. The future remains unwritten, but it is not directionless. It bends toward the decisions made quietly, deliberately, away from spectacle. If unity emerges, it will not be because conflict never existed. It will be because those involved chose understanding over ego. And that choice, more than any coronation or proclamation, would mark a turning point, not only for a family, but for an institution navigating its most modern chapter. And perhaps the most powerful legacy isn't written in law, but in forgiveness. Strip away the titles, remove the pageantry. What remains is a grandfather and a child connected by blood, history, and possibility. The world may crave spectacle, but the most profound shifts often happen quietly, in conversations never televised, in gestures never photographed. Whether reconciliation comes swiftly or slowly, one truth remains: legacy is not just inherited, it is chosen. For years, the narrative has been dominated by distance, by departure, by the slow unraveling of expectation. But beneath every headline stands something far more human. A man who spent a lifetime preparing to serve, now confronting the reality that service alone cannot mend every fracture. A child growing up beyond palace walls, unaware of the weight his name carries in rooms he has never entered. The contrast is striking. The success of the crown on the global stage exists alongside private uncertainty that no coronation can silence. We often forget that institutions are upheld by individuals. The monarchy may symbolize endurance, but endurance requires emotion, carefully managed, sometimes painfully suppressed. Behind the royal armor lies vulnerability. Behind the composed speeches lies introspection. Charles has weathered decades of scrutiny, triumph, criticism, and transformation. Yet none of those experiences fully prepare a man for the delicate task of reconciling legacy with love. Power grants influence, but it does not guarantee intimacy. That must be chosen. Reconciliation, if it unfolds, would symbolize more than family healing. It would signal a monarchy willing to evolve without losing itself. It would demonstrate that tradition does not demand rigidity, that continuity can coexist with compassion. The symbolism would be undeniable, a bridge extended not for optics, but for understanding. And in a world skeptical of inherited authority, such a gesture could redefine what royal strength truly means. Still, the tension between past and future cannot be erased overnight. History casts long shadows. Old misunderstandings linger. Public narratives leave scars that time alone cannot fully heal. Yet within that tension lies opportunity. The chance to prove that growth is possible, that pride can yield to perspective, that the story of this generation need not mirror the fractures of the last. The monarchy has survived by adapting, by absorbing shocks, and emerging altered but intact. This moment may be no different. There is a quiet hope woven through the uncertainty. Not a naive hope, but a deliberate one. The hope that as Archie matures, he will not feel defined soul lie by division. That as Charles continues his reign, he will not be remembered only for institutional stewardship, but for emotional courage. The hope that beyond ceremony and commentary, connection remains attainable. That identity can expand rather than fracture. That bloodlines, even stretched by distance, can find their way back toward one another. Because in the end, the crown is more than metal and ritual. It is a symbol carried by people who must navigate both public duty and private longing. The future of this story will not be determined by headlines alone. It will be shaped by choices made in silence, by humility, embraced rather than resisted, by the willingness to see one another not as symbols, but as family. And somewhere between crown and childhood, the next chapter of the royal story waits to be written. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.